Folks, thanks for tuning in to Patriot News. The 81-page report has now been released about the horrible incident in Uvalde. The investigative committee released it today. The parents picked it up at 2 p.m. Most of them are there. A lot of them are in Washington, D.C. So it's a lot of information here. And I just get the feeling that probably no one's gonna go to jail for sure. No one's gonna lose their peace officer license. I knew that for sure for the federal agents, that nothing was probably gonna happen to them. I don't know. I just get the feeling reading this. I haven't read every page yet. It's gonna take a while. So some of the conclusions are, this is off the KSAT San Antonio News KSAT website. They've been pretty good in coverage on this incident. There's poor Wi-Fi connectivity at Robb Elementary, likely delayed the lockdown alert through the Raptor application. That alert was sent, and then not all the teachers received it immediately. Variety of reasons they didn't receive it. Wi-Fi coverage. They're not sure if the teacher used the phone system or a web browser. No one used the school intercom. Okay. So all the teachers didn't know there's a lockdown. Apparently including the teacher in room 111. Okay. Robb Elementary had recurring problems with the maintaining of its doors and locks, and particularly the locking mechanism to room 111. Apparently, a lot of teachers and even the kids knew about it, which is just unbelievable. I thought they had put a work order in, but I believe it says they didn't. Yeah, here we go. Robb Elementary principal, her assistant, responsible for entering maintenance work orders through teacher in room 111. Other teachers in the 4th grade building and even many 4th grader students knew widely of the problem with the room 111. Nevertheless, no one placed a work order to repair the lock. Not the principal or secretary, the teacher in room 111, or anyone else. So I guess there was not a work order placed. Let me read that again. Yeah, no one placed a work order to repair that door. Okay. And I think we're going to find out the reason. One thing that's been bothering me is he goes into the building, okay? He doesn't look in other rooms. He doesn't check any other doors. I had made a previous video about 3 weeks ago. I imagine him checking doors, going in. Probably he knew that that first hallway he went into I thought maybe he knew they were empty because they were at lunch and maybe the doors were open to the room or something like that. But no, he didn't look inside any of those rooms. He didn't check any other door. He didn't go to the cafeteria. I thought he had gone to the cafeteria, but he did not. That was based on a statement made by one of the students. He did not go to the cafeteria. He did go straight to room 111. I mean, straight there. He went straight to the exterior door first, unlocked, right, as we all know, and then he went to room 111. I mean, how in the heck did he know to do that, and why? And I'm thinking, he went to school there. I'm thinking that's probably the room he was in. Now, I don't know 100% sure. I'm going to KHOU out of Houston's been fabulous on this report. They have a video we're about to watch right now. Okay, so the doors to room 111 and 112 were required to be locked at all times. In the lockdown, the teacher was supposed to check that they were locked. A teacher in room 112 was seen locking her classroom door after the lockdown alert. So obviously we haven't seen that video yet, okay? The door to room 111 probably was not locked. The teacher in room 111 does not recall hearing the lockdown alert. The door required special effort to lock it, and the teacher has no memory of having done so. The attacker apparently did not take any actions to overcome a locked door before entering the classroom. That means he just walked straight in there. Home and family, just pretty much stuff we've already known. No father figure. The father had a substance abuse disorder. Attacker's family moved often. They lived in relative poverty. Attacker developed sociopathic and violent tendencies but received no mental health assistance. Various members of the attacker's family were aware during the time leading up to the attacker's 18th birthday that he was estranged from his mother. He had asked for help in buying guns through straw purchases. That would have been illegal. Family members uniformly refused to buy guns for him. During the week between his 18th birthday and the events of May 24th, the attacker expressed suicidal ideation to a cousin who talked to him and did not believe he was an imminent suicide risk. During the week between his 18th birthday and events of May 24th, the attacker's grandparents and other family members became aware the attacker had bought guns. The grandparents demanded that the guns be removed from their home. Now that goes against an interview with the grandfather, who said he had no idea about the guns, which is hard to believe. You're going to bring in 2 long rifles and no one sees them, especially in that little house. And he was like sleeping on a mattress on the floor, I believe. I mean, I think the grandfather probably said he didn't know about the gun, I believe, because he did say he was an ex-felon and probably cannot have a gun. So that's probably the reason he said that he didn't know anything about a gun. But this report, if it's right, the grandparents demanded that the guns be removed from their home. And like I said in my previous video, I think the grandmother is the only thing that was positive in this guy's life, and the only one that probably had any sense in the whole family. And well, we know what he did. He shot her. So the school made no meaningful intervention when the attacker before was involuntarily withdrawn for poor academic performance and excessive absences. I mean, basically what it's saying is he fell through the cracks. Okay. The attacker had a few disciplinary issues at school, but he was suspended once for a fight. Due to its excessive absences, there apparently was no information actually known to the school district that should identify this attacker as a threat to any school campus. Law enforcement there apparently was no information, and making sense, no information actually known to local Uvalde law enforcement that should have identified this attacker as a threat to any school campus before May 24th. Friends and acquaintances of some attacker's social media contacts received messages from the attacker related to guns, suggesting he was going to do something. They would hear about the news, even referring to attacking a school. All right, so let's see here. The services used by Uvalde CISD to monitor social media for threats do not provide any alert of threatening behavior by the attacker. Okay, and of course he bought the rifle, 60 magazines, supposedly 2,000 rounds. All right. Let's see here. Multiple law enforcement officers arrived at Robb Elementary within a few minutes of the attacker coming over the fence. A Uvalde Police Department officer saw a person dressed in black and thought might have been the attacker from a distance of over 100 yards. I think it's now said. Okay, now this is interesting. I've scanned through this report. I've looked, and hopefully I'm not wrong. But so let me read it again. A Uvalde Police Department officer saw a person dressed in black and thought it might have been the attacker from a distance over 100 yards. That officer requested permission to shoot. Subsequent analysis suggests the person in black was a school coach, and the officer did not have opportunity to stop the attacker by shooting him before he entered the West building. So that goes against what the alert system report, the alert organization out of Texas State here in San Marcos, Texas, had reported. Now, I had looked earlier in my first video, and I mentioned that there's 2 male teachers. One, which is Arnolfo, which he was the teacher that was shot in 112, and there's another one's a coach, and he had gone to Southwest Texas, San Marcos, which is now Texas State. So I assumed that was him, and it was like a not a actual school day. I mean, it was a school day, but they were getting ready to graduate and stuff, and it's relaxed. Probably had shorts on and a jersey, and but what everything I understood was that a CISD officer had driven onto the campus and saw the coach, but then there was a Uvalde Police Department officer that actually had him in his sights and asked for permission, then turned around and asked her supervisor, and then shooter went into the building. So let me read this from the alert. And Uvalde police officer asked for a supervisor's permission to shoot the gunman who would soon kill 21 people at Robb Elementary School in May before he entered the building, but the supervisor did not hear the request or responded too late, according to a report released Wednesday evaluating law enforcement response to the shooting. So this is from the Texas Tribune, actually, article. Okay, let's see where to go. The request from the Uvalde officer who was outside the school about a minute before the gunman entered Robb Elementary had not previously reported. The officer was reported to have been afraid of possibly shooting children while attempting to take out the gunman, according to the report released Wednesday by the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training Center located at Texas State University in San Marcos. The report provides a host of new details about the May 24th shooting, including several missed opportunities to engage or stop the gunman before he entered the school. The lack of response to the officer's request to shoot the suspect outside the school was the most significant new detail that the report revealed. A reasonable officer would conclude in this case, based upon the totality of the circumstances, that use of deadly force is warranted, according to the report. The report referred to the Texas Penal Code, which states an individual is justified in using deadly force when the individual responsibly believes the deadly force is immediate and necessary to prevent the commission of murder. The report said one of the first responding officers, a Uvalde School District police officer, drove through the school's parking lot at a high rate of speed and didn't spot the gunman who was still in the parking lot. The report said the officer might have seen the suspect if he had driven more slowly or parked the car at the edge of the school property and approached on foot. The report also found flaws in the school's maintenance. It goes on about that. So it's two, oh God, it's two different reports. This one that was given to the parents today, officer saw someone dressed in black, and God, it sounded like he almost shot him, and it happened to be a coach from what I'm reading. From a distance over 100 yards, that officer requested permission to shoot. Subsequent analysis, whatever that means, suggests that it was the coach. So, did he have the coach in his sights? Or did he have the shooter, the attacker? I don't know, y'all. The alert report says this, and this report says this. Unclear. I just can't believe it. Don't know why I was expecting anything different. It's frustrating. Very frustrating. You know, at the beginning, McCraw said that they had engaged the shooter, which I assumed was with this Uvalde police officer had him in his sight. Here's the statement I just saw earlier that makes me think that nothing's gonna happen to anybody here. Let's see if I can find it. 1 second. Here it is. Other than the attacker, the committee did not find any villains in the course of its investigation. There is no one to whom we can attribute malice or ill motives. Instead, we found systemic failures and egregious poor decision making. We recognize that the impact of this tragedy is felt most profoundly by the people of Uvalde in ways we cannot fully comprehend. Now, there is another statement here that surprised me that they put in here. Let's see if I can find it. This is surprising that they put this in here. The void of leadership could have contributed to the loss of life as injured victims waited for over an hour for help and the attacker continued to sporadically fire his weapon. So there you go. Robb Elementary School coach Yvette Silva acted heroically and almost certainly saved lives by altering the school to the attacker's advance. Most fourth grade classes successfully locked down as a result of her quick response. After entering through the unlocked west door, the attacker had about 3 minutes in the west building, including approximately 2.5 minutes during which the attacker is estimated to have fired over 100 rounds. The initial responders to the west building heard gunfire entered a hallway with a locked, fogged drywall, debris, bullets, which they identify as the location of the attacker. They acted promptly by attempting to breach the classroom and stop the attacker. The attacker immediately repelled with a burst of rifle fire from inside the classroom. First, we know that they had then declared it a barricaded subject, and so here it goes. At first, the first responders did not have reliable evidence about whether there were injured victims inside rooms 111 and 112, although circumstantial evidence strongly suggested that possibility, including the fact that the attacker had fired many rounds inside classrooms at a time when students were in attendance. I mean, for anybody to think there wasn't students in there, it's just crazy. You got students being evacuated during the regular school day. I mean, who they think's in there, you know? Chief Arredondo was one of the first responders to arrive at the West Building. In initial response to the incident, Chief Arredondo was actively engaged in the effort to stop the killing up to the point when the attacker was located in rooms 111 and 112, and the attacker fired on responding officers. By this time, there were a dozen officers on the scene. Arredondo did not assume his pre-assigned responsibility of incident command, which would have entailed informing other officers that he was in command and also leaving the building to exercise command, beginning with establishing a command post. Goes on to say the scene was chaotic without any person obviously in charge or directing law enforcement. There was an overall lackadaisical approach by law enforcement at the scene. For many, that was because they were given and relied upon inaccurate information. For others that had enough information known better. Chief Arredondo and other officers at the south end of the building were focused on gaining access to the classroom through a use of a breaching tool and a key or other means and protective equipment for officers. Meanwhile, dozens of law enforcement officers were assembling the hallway on the north side of the building, stacking up for an assault on the classroom, and mostly waiting for further instructions pending the arrival of protective gear and breaching equipment. While 911 received communications from victims inside rooms 111 and 112, Chief Arredondo did not learn about it because of his failure to establish a reliable method of receiving critical information from outside the building. Eventually, Chief Arredondo came to understand there were probably more casualties inside rooms 111 and 112. Even if he had received information of surviving injured victims in the classroom, it is unclear that he would have done anything differently to act more urgently. U.S. Marshals provided a rifle-rated shield, and it arrived around 12:20, approximately 30 minutes before the classroom was finally breached. While officers acted on the assumption that the doors to room 111 and 112 were locked as they were designed to be, nobody tested that assumption. No one checked the door, the unlocked door, just hit the handle, it would open. And you got to think this. He's bound to know how the doors operate, right? He's the chief of police for the school district. And if the shooter went in there and there's no visible sign of him shooting the lock, or there's no, there's no hole in the door, obviously he went in and it's going to be unlocked because you have to lock him from the outside. So he's not going to. Shooter's not going to go into the room, get the key, and come back out and lock it, then go back in. He just went in. It should be obvious that the door was unlocked. The committee has not received medical evidence that would inform a judgment about whether breaching the classroom sooner than the approximately 73 minutes that passed between the first responders' initial arrival at the West Building and their eventual breach of the classroom could have saved lives or mitigated injuries. I think that's way too early to report that until more of the information comes in from the coroner. As described above, it's likely that most of the deceased victims perished immediately during the attacker's initial barrage or gunfire. That's based on the nature of their wounds that they're going to say that. Now, however, given the information known about victims who survived at the same time of the breach and who later died on the way to the hospital, which was the case with the teacher Morales, it is possible that some victims could have survived if they had not had to wait 73 additional minutes for rescue. Well, I can't believe they put that in there actually. So it's a long one. Let's watch this video real quick over here on KHOU about some shocking information about in this report about Ramos. Hold on one second.
About the gunman, Salvador Ramos. We learned a lot of new information about him, and then leading up to kind of that tragic May 24th day. Yeah,
and at this time, we're going to spend just a little bit of time on him and bring it back into some of our later newscasts. But, there are a lot of tidbits in there about how, sometime in March, they believed he had gone through the outside of the school and kind of scaled it to see, I guess the setup or what was going on. Also, that the fourth grade classroom that he went into was his former fourth grade classroom where teachers had testified that he was, quote-unquote, bullied, or he was a child who was shy and performed poorly. And then also, a few days, the report says, before he did this, he was talking to a relative of his who's a child who attends the school, one of his cousins, asking about the lunch hour and the lunch period, which was around that time when this attack happened. So a lot of those little heartbreaking details, and also the fact that he didn't know how to drive, that his uncle took him to pick up those guns.
To explain why he crashed the truck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all those little things that came to light. But also want to point out, Xavier, before this starts, we mentioned the alert system and the lockdowns that took place. So let's talk a little bit about the security in the school and why a lot of teachers didn't get the message. According to the report, the committee says they had poor Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
Also, since they installed that alert in February of 2020,